If you grew up with the stuff I grew up with, then you grew up with two monster befriending series, Pokémon and Lilo Stitch the series. And if you're really like me, you probably thought about how cool it would be if they crossed over. And that's what I'm gonna set out to achieve here. These past few months I've been honing my Fakemon skills. Not just my sprite art skills, which won't be animated this time around, but also my learn set making skills. And I've even been trying to learn classic Sugimori watercolor art. Today, we're gonna take the first 3 experiments we ever met, Stitch, Reuben, and Sparky, and turn them into Pokemon. We of course start with the first experiment we ever met, the one and only experiment 626 Stitch. The cool thing is they look pretty Pokemon-like already. There are some things to make them more Pokemon though. But also come on, let's be real here. It'll be hard to change peak character design. I started my process by drawing Stitch in my art style. I wanted Stitch to be in his alien form, which includes his spines. With these spines, Stitch is more Pokemon-like to me. Those spines are apparently venomous by the way, so keep that in mind for this Fakemon. One thing I wanted to do was have some Pokemon cohesion, which here involved making the antennae also venomous spines, giving this Fakemon thin horns in a sense. After getting used to the design, and making the eyes Charmander-like, I decided to open the mouth, creating a friendly, maybe somewhat mischievous grin. This also helps make the design look less static. Afterwards, I traced over the line work with a pencil brush I made. I just increased the jitter of a normal round brush, and started with the painting. How about we meet the newest member of our Ohana, Stitchend.
Stitchend, the mending Pokemon. Stitchend is very smart and very mischievous. They're strong enough to lift objects 3,000 times their weight.
Stitchend is a dark fighting type, representing Stitch's original programming and character arc. For abilities, Stitchend has Poison Point, Sheer Force, and Sturdy. Poison Point is the reference to venomous spines we talked about. Sheer Force, and Stitch can lift anything 3,000 times his weight, but not an ounce more. And finally is Sturdy. Stitch was made to be virtually indestructible, so the Sturdy ability made sense. By the way, I came very close to giving Stitchend huge power, but that attack stat of 130 is good as is. Now we move on to the learn set. Acid because Stitch can spit a ball of sludge, Defense Curl and Rot with how Stitch rolls around, and of course your fair share of dark and fighting moves. Along with the GSC Dex entry format, we're also using GSC learn sets. Stitchend Shiny is red. It should be pretty clear what this is referencing. It's Lilo's dress. It's not like Stitch has an evil clone or two we can look at. And finally is the name. The first part should be pretty obvious. Stitch from Stitch's name, which was meant to represent the stitching of Lilo's family. But then there's the other part. End. End comes from mend, which is just another word for Stitch. But you could also read it as Stitch End, the end of Stitch. Lilo has gone off to college or got a boyfriend or something, and Stitch has decided to head off into space and became evil again, kinda, I think. Apparently that's what happened in the Stitch anime. And yes, there's a Stitch anime. Or you could also read it as there being no need to Stitch anymore. The Ohana is all here and we're good. But I think Stitch has had enough of the spotlight. I think we need to make room for a cousin now. It's Reuben's time to get a Fakemon based off of him. Reuben is a failed attempt at making Stitch, having the same powers and abilities as Stitch, but just being too lazy to actually use them. This Fakemon won't be a part of the same line as Stitchend, but will be implied to share a common ancestor. Think Tauros and Miltank or the Pika clones. Once again, my process was largely the same. One thing I definitely wanted to do was have a more relaxed posture. I would also try to have a relaxed expression to achieve this. This Pokemon should be more on the lazy side after all. This Fakemon would have similar motifs to Stitchend, such as the thin horns. Reuben has what looks like little dog ears, so I decided to play with that by making them big dog ears. After some refining, the next Fakemon was done. Let's meet the cousin who's somehow related to the family, Slothargic.
Slothargic, the loafing Pokemon. To the surprise of many, Slothargic is very strong. However, they're very lazy and prefers to eat.
Slothargic is a normal type. showing how Reuben doesn't have the innate desire to be evil. He only is because it's convenient for him. Slothargic will share the true ability with slacking, making Slothargic only able to attack every other turn. But for hidden abilities, Slothargic does have gluttony, so you would be able to use Slothargic's stats to their fullest. Speaking of which, Slothargic has the same stats as Stitchin, like how Reuben is seemingly just as strong as Stitch is. He just needs to be motivated to do so. Now we have the learn set. Between Stitchin and Slothargic, the only differences are in the level up moves. Aside from Crunch, all moves at the rollout are different to account for different stabs. Slothargic also learns a few moves a level earlier. Slothargic's shiny is blue. I originally did this to reference Gantu, who we know to be Reuben's buddy. These two are constantly taking jabs at each other. They're like some kind of old married couple, though Reuben usually came out on top. But looking at the shiny again, I just realized that hey, the shiny's blue. You know, like Stitch. The experiment that Reuben is a failed version of. So yeah, not only does the blue shiny reference Gantu, but it also adds another connection between Stitchin and Slothargic. Finally is the name, which should once again be pretty obvious. Slothargic comes from slothful and lethargic, both ways to describe someone who's lazy, and Reuben is definitely lazy. And now we've made to the final Fakemon of the video. In Stitch the movie we met, not just Reuben, but also Sparky, who ends up being the first experiment Lilo and Stitch befriend. They even find the place that Sparky belongs, that being the lighthouse. In universe, this Fakemon would probably have a similar backstory, being a mischievous Pokemon who ruins electrical machinery, but being really fond of powering lighthouses. This time I want to try a more dynamic pose. Sparky flying towards the screen, with the camera on overhead shot, felt like it would look good. Similar to Stitch End, I want to try a mischievous look in the eyes, with the top eyelids now closed a little too. The body would always be in Sparky's electrical form. Here it will be the Fakemon's natural form. And now it's time to meet the final cousin of the video, a Steel Ray.
A Steel Ray, the current Pokemon. When a power outage starts to occur throughout an entire region, a Steel Ray is sure to be the culprit.
And electric type because what else? For abilities, there is only Levitate, effectively giving a Steel Ray no weaknesses. This will be balanced by a Steel Ray being a complete glass cannon. That speed and special attack can cause real damage, but you also ain't taking many hits. And here's another thing with the base stats. If I do make more experiments to Fakemon, they won't have base totals near 540. Stitch and Reuben are meant to be the strongest, so base totals closer to 500 make more sense. Now let's look at the learn set. For 1, by level up there's 1 less move, for a similar reason as the base stats. By level up it's pretty much all electric moves. The same goes for the TM moves. And this is the only Fakemon here who can learn a Crystal Tutor move. When we get to the shiny, his Steel Ray becomes green. I don't have a particular reason for this, only that Sparky's pod is green. And I think this is pretty good for a green shiny. Not too bright, but not too barf color. And I don't know, green electricity sounds like a good idea. And finally is the name. Sparky is known to cause power outages and ruin electronics, stealing them effectively. So you could read it as a Steel Ray, the rate at which a Steel Ray is stealing electricity. But the name did originally come from Accelerate, just like how Sparky eventually powers that lighthouse. A Steel Ray could also use their powers to accelerate machinery. The name also comes from Circulate, like how Sparky zips around, going from power source to power source, powering them up or sapping the power they have. And there you have it, folks. 3 Fakemon based on the first 3 Lilo and Stitch experiments we ever met. Stitchin based on experiment 626 Stitch, Slothargic based on experiment 625 Reuben, and a Steel Ray based on experiment 221 Sparky. Honestly, I had a blast making these Fakemon. I really want to get into Fakemon making, possibly making videos like these more consistently. So hopefully you enjoyed this as much as I did. Now I won't lie, those last 2 Fakemon videos kinda drained me. 9 Fakemon in one video is way too much for a novice like me. But 3 or 4 will be much more sustainable, though I will admit, my sprites need more practice. But the digital watercolor art was really fun to make. And making GSC learn sets makes my monkey brain go wow. Same goes for GSC Dex entries. They were real fun to make. I truly look forward to making more Fakemon in the near future, and improving the things I learned through making this video. If you want a sequel to this video concept, turning experiments into Fakemon, then let me know which experiments are your favorites. I already have 3 in mind for a sequel, including my favorite experiment, Splody Head. He's the best boy after Stitch. But I don't know, maybe I could include a 4th if you guys ask for one. Also, if there's any other show, or other piece of media like a video game, that you'd want me to look up for Fakemon inspiration, then let me know that too. I also hope you like the custom icons I made, both the type icons and the detail icons. Now, if you guys need me, I need to work on my next upload, because after that, I have a score to settle with Inbred Diamond and Silly Pearl. Have a nice day, you wonderful people.
He's touching me. He's touching me.
I'm not touching you.
Ah, you're touching me.
I'm not touching.
Touching me.
It's free air.